Hey folks, today we have, what a surprise, a Thinkpad video. We're going to be looking at the Thinkpad X260, which is right here. It is one of the newer X series laptops from 2016 on the Skylake platform. This is the first Skylake machine I have ever used. So, I'd like to give my impressions of it. This is the cheapest way I got my hands on Skylake and made a useful purchase at the same time. So, the X260 is a newer X series ThinkPad, which I haven't had a chance to take a look at yet, which I think is pretty cool. So, how do I like Skylake so far? It's pretty good. It's a big improvement over the X230's HD 4000 that I was using as far as graphics are concerned. It's a lot thinner. The screen resolution is exactly the same, 1366 by 768. The speakers on this are a remarkable improvement over the X230. It's all around a very nice machine. It also has the backlit keyboard, which I think it was Louis Rossmann that said this. The non-backlit keyboard does seem to feel better than the backlit one, although this backlit one doesn't feel terrible. But I kind of need the backlight when it sits next to my bed. So, yeah, there you have it. They have indeed kept the Broadwell ThinkPad design with the real buttons for the track point, which is excellent. This laptop came with a Windows 10 Pro license. I've run Linux on it, specifically Debian 9, and it runs both operating systems quite well, I would say. ThinkPad's definitely still the machine to get for a Linux laptop, if it's not a System 76 or something like that. Makes an excellent computer. Now, if you've seen my video on the T450, there's not a whole lot of difference here. The difference between the Broadwell and Skylake ThinkPads is very little. It's still an Ultrabook form factor. This is just a bigger version. Sort of the same thing here. This is the non-backlit keyboard I was talking about. It even has more sound to it. The non-backlit keyboards definitely feel better, but that backlight is a good trade-off if you use the computer in the dark a lot. The T450 and the T440p I don't tend to use in the dark all that often, but this one I do. So there you have it. The main reason I got the X260 was so that I got a graphical improvement over the X230. The HD 4000 was starting to show its age. Whenever I pushed the graphics, it would lag a little bit, especially when it had to do a lot. And this isn't a Second Life viewer. When you go into a populated area, at least on HD 4000, it would start to lag. On this, that's a lot less of a problem. It's improved. So, there you go. So, the X260. Let's take a look at the laptop itself. You have your power connector here with a new square. You have your vent, your CPU fan vent here. You have HDMI, mini display port, 2 USB ports, a slot for what could have been a smart card reader. The front has absolutely nothing. The right side has a headset jack, another USB port. Looks like a SIM card slot here, an SD card slot, honest to goodness Ethernet, and a Kensington lock slot. The back is just the battery. The bottom, you get a dock connector, and just like most of the ThinkPad Ultrabooks, the battery system is a two-stage, or two-battery system. It uses two batteries. You have one internal and one external. This is the smaller external battery, which I don't really need the bigger extended battery. This is fine. There's also a battery in the laptop that we'll see in a second that comes in addition to this. So it's the same setup as the T450, actually. Same exact setup. It might as well be the same computer, really. The design between the 450, between the Broadwell and the Skylake systems really hasn't changed. So, in case you're thinking about getting a Skylake ThinkPad, like the X260 for instance, there's really not going to be a whole lot of difference from the Broadwell. So if you have Broadwell ThinkPads now, I really don't see the point in upgrading until something past Kaby comes out. Intel has a 3-stage release on processors now. It's instead of at the tick-tock like they used to have, it's a 3-stage. So maybe in the first stage of a new cycle is when you should upgrade. So, the X260. How does it perform? Performs very well. The CPU in it is excellent. It's an i5 that I forget the specifics of. We'll look at it when I turn it on in a second. It has 8 gigs of RAM, which is not enough. We're going to upgrade that here in a second. I have ordered some RAM for it that we will install here on video. Graphically, it performs great. The screen on it seems pretty good. The keyboard on it is excellent, at least as far as laptop keyboards go, with backlights in them. They don't tend to be the most tactile that way, but hey, I like backlit keyboards in the dark, so that's cool. What else can I talk about? Let's talk about servicing these. It's a bit different than some of the older ThinkPads. These newer Ultrabook form factor ThinkPads are a little bit, shall we say, weird to open. It's not quite as straightforward to do something like swap out the RAM like it was before. What you have to do is what I'm doing now. You have to unscrew the bottom, and a whole panel comes off. So in a way, it's a bit like the Dell Latitude series during the Sandy Bridge era, how there would be just one bottom pan that would come off. I don't necessarily mind that, but I when there's clips involved, it makes me nervous. So it's not optimal, the most optimal way to have to take a laptop apart, in my opinion. Alright. There's quite a bit of screws on the bottom here. There don't seem to be any by the battery compartment, though, which is nice. There's one just under the dock connector I almost forgot about. And then you basically have to pull up on the sides. Just be gentle with it, don't force it too much. Come on. Come on, buddy. Sometimes you have to... Whoops, there's a screw. These screws aren't captive, by the way, so it's a bit weird when they come out, so be careful. Okay, now we got the bottom off. Now let's take a look. This is what the inside of the X260 looks like. Here's the internal battery. It is a 1.91 amp hour battery, 11.4 volts. There's the 1 RAM slot in this laptop. And here is the SSD I put in here. It's a 480 gig Intel 730 series SSD. Looks like there is room here for maybe an M.2 SSD. I'm guessing. There's your wireless card. Maybe this is for, oh, you know what this might be for? This might be, maybe it can do both. Their antenna's attached, so I assume it's probably for a cellular modem, probably, for the SIM card slot. Is there an M.2 slot in here somewhere? I'd be surprised if there wasn't. Maybe it functions as both. I'm not very clear on that. I'd have to look that up to know for sure. But as you can see, it is very compact in here. Now what we're going to do is upgrade the RAM. The one complaint I have with the newer X series laptops is that they only have 1 RAM slot. And right now the biggest stick I can get is 16 gigs, which honestly is fine by me. But for longevity, if you want to keep this for, let's say, you know, 10 years or something. Being able to upgrade to 32 easily with two 16 gig sticks would be very nice to have. I'm guessing that on DDR4 there will be 32 gig sticks eventually. But I didn't see any for sale when I went to buy that RAM. 16 gigs on a bedside laptop, though, should be fine. Now, what kind of RAM did it come with? It came with Micron RAM. And there you go. 8 gigs of RAM on one stick. So let's stick the new 16 gig stick in this laptop and get on with the road. And then we can boot it up and I can show you. Whoops. Sticker. Then we can boot this up and I can show you the whole thing. Here's a stick of RAM. It's very pretty. These aren't heat spreaders, by the way. Those are just stickers. So take the RAM and make sure it's facing the right way. Let's put it in there. There you go. The RAM is upgraded, and I'll put the old RAM into. I'll put the old RAM into this plastic thing. Put this and the sticker back in, and presto. Okay, upgraded. Now the nice thing is, despite this having the Telltale Ultrabook stuff in it, it's still not that horrible to work on. Oh, these plastic clips at the top make me nervous, man. Not a fan. Then just screw it back together. So I'll screw it back together and then we'll get on with it. Alright, everything's screwed back in. Let's stick the battery in. Seems solid to me. Alright. Now I'll put the ThinkPad in its dock. Now the funny thing is, you might remember this ThinkPad dock that I got for my T440p. Well, this dock works with not only the T450, but it also works with the X260, and I've been using it with the X260 lately. And there you go, fits right in. And then I use it next to my bed here with my trusty Logitech trackball. So let's give this thing a whirl. Let's make sure my RAM works. And make sure that thing's all the way in the dock. Sometimes it doesn't go all the way in. Let me turn this lamp off so you can see. And you turn these on, I notice there's a new boot logo. This RAM stick better work. It's just kind of, there it goes. Get into the BIOS here. Oh, it just starts into Windows. That's fine. We can show you the RAM and stats and stuff in Windows. Let's go to. I have the brightness really low, by the way, just because this is the brightness I usually have it at night. Here are your specs. Sorry about this flickering, guys. The screen's a bit meh. It's an i5-6300U at 2.4 gigahertz, but it's running at 2.5. It sees the 16 gigs of RAM. That's good. It uses, I guess it uses a little bit for system resources or something. It's running Windows 10 Pro. Now, what's the graphics on this? It is Intel HD 520, which does a fairly good job. I'm fairly impressed with how it performs. It's not like I really push it that hard on this computer. I mean, the most this thing ever does is run a Second Life client, which uses quite a bit of OpenGL. But really, most of the time, it's just displaying YouTube videos. But for the odd moment when I want 3D to perform well, it does. This X260 I'm very happy with. I'm extremely happy. Very, very happy. The speakers on it aren't bad either. They sound better than the X230, a little bit less tinny. I don't know if there's any more clarity, but it's definitely made quite a difference. On Linux, they have a little bit more dynamics. On Windows, it tends to I think it compresses the sound a little bit. I'm not quite sure what it does, but it sounds like there's more loudness equalization on it in Windows than it does in Linux. I'm sure I can turn that off somehow, but honestly, loudness equalization isn't a bad thing on a laptop next to your bed, so that leveling of watching YouTube videos is about the same. So that's not a bad thing. This laptop has been a star performer, as ThinkPads seem to always be for me. So the X260, it's one hell of a machine. If you're looking for if you're looking to get on a DDR4 platform on a laptop, you really can't go wrong with a T460 series or an X260 series machine. Depending, whatever SKU you like. There's the T460, the T460S, and the T460P. I would probably go for the T460P if I was getting a T series, but in the X series, you get one choice. And I like these smaller laptops for sitting on a bedside table like this. I think that's a lot better because I can fit the mouse better here too. So I can just, use the mouse like that. So what do I think of the X260 in conclusion? Absolute star performer. Lenovo is still doing well. I mean, a lot of people hated on Lenovo during the 240 and 440 series of ThinkPads, but they're back, man. These laptops are stellar, and they're only from last year. I'm sure the X270 is just as good as this. I don't think the design has changed a whole lot of that one either. So, like the differences in the videos where I've talked about the differences in design are kind of a thing of the past. Now that they seem to have settled on something now, which is nice. I like a little consistency. It may be boring to make videos about and say, well, it's the same. But honestly, a little consistency in products is not a bad thing. I really like that. So sometimes if it's boring, that's a good thing. That means I didn't screw up. So and then Lenovo certainly didn't screw up here. It's an excellent machine. I definitely recommend it. I would like to add that this is what I'm upgrading from, the X230, and here's the X260, of course. You can see the design has changed quite a bit from these two. This is sort of a hybrid between the X220 and the X240. It was kind of the in-betweener, which honestly makes for a really good laptop. This is fully evolved. This hasn't really changed much since the X240. The design's been pretty much the same, so these are probably going to look the same for quite a while here, which is not a bad thing, because this is a nice look for ThinkPads. But I thought I'd show you a side-by-side comparison of the two laptops. You notice how big the trackpad is on this one. So you can see some of the design changes there. But I'm upgrading from this to this. I have two X230s. I'm going to sell one. I'm going to sell this particular one and keep the other one because I have this now, and this is nice. Yeah. And here's the X260 running on Debian. I showed you it running Windows, figured I might as well show you it running Debian too. I ended up switching back because I got some stuff to work that I initially couldn't get to work. So that's cool. The only thing that's wrong with Debian 9 right now is that there's something wrong with Mate settings daemon and the background. I can't change my background even though if I go into the settings for it. You change the setting and it doesn't actually do anything. Like you can see it's my mixer background by the little thumbnail there, but it's not changing the background because somebody broke the package. So eventually I'll update and that'll be fixed. But it's working perfectly and detecting everything just fine. We get that CPU graph we didn't get before. There's your 16 gigs. Well, stealing some for the video, using a little bit because I have Chrome open. It's not using any swap at the moment. Using a little bit of CPU, not a whole lot. But there you go, Debian 9. 6300U. One thing I just reminded myself of, I need to change the swappiness on this computer, so I'll do that. I'm going to change it to 10 instead of like 50 or whatever the default setting is. But I figured I should show you that I did end up putting Debian back on it. I got it to work the way I wanted it to, so cool stuff. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this video about the ThinkPad X260. It's a wonderful machine. I intend to keep this one for a long time. I don't really need anything. I'm not going to need anything better than this for a while because the technology in it is pretty up to date. So, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Have a good one, everybody. Ciao.